Education is an enabler. Health is an enabler. We will remain with another enabler, two enablers. One is going to be the role of technology, especially ICT technology. And we need to do better than we are doing. I know we've done 30,000 kilometers of fiber optic. We have put up 382 ICT hubs in Gitume labs and this ICT infrastructure. They are not enough. Our commitment was 1,450. We have done 382, they are complete. Another 400 hubs are under construction. We are slightly behind schedule. We need to harness the place of ICT as an enabler to our first world dream. And finally, the software that will drive us there is going to be integrity. We must face corruption head on, wastage of public money, theft, pilferage, misappropriation, wastage. We must cut down our expenditure, especially current expenditure, and invest in capital projects that will push our country forward and make those responsible for our resources to be accountable. Because integrity is the software that will drive the hardware we are talking about. Education, that's why we are very keen in perfecting the CBC curriculum, ensuring smooth transition. We have employed teachers. We had a gap of 116,000 teachers. We have already done 100,000. We will close this gap. We built 23,000 classrooms, 1,600 laboratories. We have also relooked at the tertiary education system, introduced modularization so that you don't have to stay in a TVET for 3.5 years to get your diploma. If you're an artisan, and you have some little time, you go and do one module, you continue with your Juakali business. When you get some more time, you go back, you do another module until you accumulate enough modules to get your diploma. And because of modularization and two other policy interventions we have made in that space, the dual training policy and the recognition of prior learning, those three policy interventions have pushed the enrollment of TVET from 297,000 students in 2022 September to currently 720,000 students. Because you cannot have an economy where there are more students in the university than in the TVETs. It should be the other way around. So we are making deliberate reforms in education. We've changed the university funding model. We have increased the education budget. I see people commenting about our commitment to our education agenda. Education is a major enabler to our vision to go to the first world economy. We have moved the funding of education from 500 billion in 2022. This year, 2026, 2027, we are putting 765 billion in that sector. And so on and so on. I've talked about the teachers, the tutors in TVET, and so many other reforms that we are doing in that space of education. We are a stable democracy and in a complex region. We are a leader in renewable energy and climate action. We are a hub for diplomacy, logistics, and finance, and our population is dynamic and entrepreneurial. These are not abstract attributes. They are strategic assets. The task before our diplomatic service is to convert these assets into measurable national gain. On matters of peace and security, Kenya's position remains firm. Our commitment to regional stability is anchored in the understanding that our prosperity is inseparable from that of our neighborhood. We will continue to play our role consistently, responsibly, with a clear appreciation of the evolving nature of the threats we face. At the multilateral level, Kenya must remain purposeful. We will continue to advocate for a more equitable and responsive international system. But we must also engage with the discipline required to influence outcomes. This requires coherence, sustained engagement, and the ability to build and lead coalitions. and by coalitions, I don't mean political coalitions, that you can build great roads and railways and airports, but all that can come tumbling down in 1 week, just 1 week of disorder. Those of us who were alert and about in 2007, you know what the 3 weeks of violence between December 30th and January 15, 2007, 2008, you know the damage that was caused on the economy of Kenya by 3 weeks of riots. An economy that had pushed itself to 7% was reduced to negative 1% because of 3 weeks of riots. So peace is priceless. It's an asset that we must protect, and we must do whatever it takes to make sure that our country is peaceful, but also our neighborhood is peaceful and the world is peaceful. During the last 4 years, almost now, Kenya has pulled some of the most consequential programs that have delayed our progress since we attained independence in 1963. And I want to say without any fear of contradiction that the gains we have made in the stabilization of macroeconomic fundamentals of our country is something to be applauded, and it's something that has eluded us for a long time. I say this because the current indicators of macroeconomic stability will be long-term, will not be short-term. We know there are both external and internal shocks, including global crisis like what we are having in the Middle East, but also internal shocks like droughts and floods and other things. But I dare say where this administration has placed Kenya's macroeconomic fundamentals is a place of near irreversibility. For the reason that we have found a way of cushioning our currency from erratic fluctuations that have always bothered us whenever there are short-term or long-term internal or external economic shocks. You'll witness for the last 2 years, our currency has stuck at between 128 to 129 to the dollar. That is not going to change anytime soon. It will not change. In fact, the projection from the Central Bank of Kenya is that any change, if at all, and it has to be minimal, will be to make the shilling even stronger. I'm saying this because we would have even done more on the Kenya shilling, but we also have to balance the stabilization of our currency with other important national objectives, including the protection of our export earnings. Because if we don't control the stability of the currency, then we can have a sharp drop in export earnings, and that, of course, will have its own effect on the economy. Other than that, I want to give you the assurance that that indicator of macroeconomic stability is something we have been able to crack, and we are not going to reverse on that. But we also need the enablers of this grand infrastructure plan, the social enablers. That's why we are very keen on universal health cover, because you need a healthy population. We have moved this nation in the last 4 years from a country where only 7 million Kenyans had access to some form of medical cover, public medical insurance cover. We've moved from 7 million under NHIF in 2022 to this morning, 30.2 million Kenyans. Phenomenal. We are moving towards universality. By end of this year, we are targeting between 40 and 45 million Kenyans under UHC. We know it is not perfect. We are fine-tuning so that it can be better and better. We are working on medical commodities supply chain. We are working on placing equipment in hospitals, especially level 2, 3, and 4. We are working on the referral system. We are working on the actuarials to make sure that the actuarials, the premiums that are paid, are commensurate with running a huge program like that. Tell me which country has tried an ambitious public health insurance program equivalent to what we have at the moment. You will not find, even among the developed world. It's not an easy thing. So we are moving towards universality, and we are on the road there. In 2022 September, the foreign exchange reserves were at 5.7 billion, the lowest in so many years, providing an import cover of only 2.5 months. We have now, in the last 3.5 years, pushed our national reserves from $5.7 billion to a historic $14.2 billion US dollars, the highest reserves we have ever got in our country. Remember, in 2022, if you needed some dollars, you had to book with a bank. I'm sure some of the bankers are here, they can witness, they can give evidence and testify. If you are an importer, want to bring some goods in Kenya, you need to pay in US dollars, like oil marketers and other people. If you need $1 million, you are told, we cannot get $1 million. We'll give you 20,000, 50,000. You book, and you are not sure you'll get them. Today, we have more than enough. We have almost 7 months of import cover, meaning even if the economy was shut for 7 months, we can still continue transacting and running our economy. Those are just 3 indicators: the stability of the currency, national savings, and foreign exchange reserves. There are many other, about 6, 7 fundamentals of economic stability that we have been able to crack in an irreversible manner. And that is the foundation upon which we are building the rest of the economy on. Because if the fundamentals, the macroeconomic fundamentals are not right, it doesn't matter what effort you make in the economic sectors. The house will come tumbling down. So I am happy that we have made that major breakthrough, and now we are pushing on building infrastructure. We are pushing on social enablers like reforming education and health, where we've made some good progress. The housing progress is underway. The job creation programs are underway, both under Kazi kwa Ground, Kazi Majuu, Kazi kwa Mtandao programs, and now soon Kazi Baharini, which we need to unlock quite a number of jobs in the blue economy sector, international job market. So we are on course. Just to give you just an example too, housing program alone, right now we have 235 affordable housing sites, 500 market sites, and in 45 counties. And we have 630,000 Kenyans who are not working in 2022 who are now employed under that sector. And because it's a long-term program, that number will keep on increasing. We are targeting 1 million by the end of the year. And so under the public infrastructure, we are stretching the job creation agenda to 1 million. And then under the digital jobs infrastructure, I think there we need to up our game a bit. We are at 300,000. That sector can give us 1 million jobs very easily. And we are working to provide the enablers that will give us a multiplier effect. And the Kazi Majuu, we are now slightly over 500,000 jobs. We are putting pressure on all the agencies to push us to 1 million. And By the end of this first term of President William Ruto, we will have put close to 5 million young people who were not working in 2022 on the job market. Since 1963, we have struggled with a poor savings culture as a country. And one of the reasons why we have incurred a lot of external debts is a poor savings culture. And all these years, all these decades, we have been borrowing money from multilateral lenders, bilateral lenders, money which is savings of the people of other nations, which savings they end up lending the World Bank and other institutions, and that is what poor countries have been borrowing. We are almost turning a very important corner, because since 1963 to 2023, our NSSF, the pensions money, which is the money many countries use for their development and investments, we had saved 320 billion shillings for 62 years. They're coming into effect of a new law in 2023. For 2 years, by 2025 December, we have moved our national savings under NSSF from 320 billion saved over 6 decades. We've saved in 2 years an extra 370 billion in 2 years. We are now at 690 billion, and we are targeting by next year 1 trillion shillings in national savings. 3 times. In 3 years, we'll have saved 3 times what we have saved in 62 years. That is one of the stress relievers that you've seen of late, especially on our national infrastructure projects. We are now dualing the Rironi-Mau Summit Highway. We are not going to borrow any money. There will be no debt, and we will not raise new taxes. Part of the money being invested to build that road is money. NSSF has a big stake, is one of the big investors. Just to give you an example. So national savings is another macroeconomic indicator that we have cracked, and we are not going to reverse on that. Going forward, we'll be borrowing our own money without any threat of sovereign default and the embarrassment that follows nations that borrow to build infrastructure, which infrastructure gets externally exposed when there is a threat of default. Maybe one last example of macroeconomic indicators which we have resolved with finality. We have a lot of hope in you. You are the biggest human resource asset that we have to help the world partner with Kenya. Because this transformation we are talking about, we cannot do it by ourselves. Why? Because going into the future, we will of course have a role to play as a country. But more with the kind of resources we need, despite the strides we are making, we need investments, we need capital injection, not necessarily from donor money or money from other governments, but private sector investments. For example, the dream to the first world, initially we need 5 trillion. We will not raise the entire 5 trillion ourselves. We just need to raise a fraction and crowd in private investments. And that's what we have started doing. Through the Safaricom partial disinvesture, and the partial sale of Kenya Pipelines shares. We are going to raise 350 billion, just those two transactions alone. But for every shilling we have raised through these transactions, we will attract 10 shillings from private sector, because we'll have assured the private sector, if we are putting that money to build a road or a railway or an airport, we just need to invest 10%, 90% will come from that confidence from the private sector. So you have a big role to play to project Kenya as a safe country, as an important country, and as a country on the move. I wish you all the best. And when you're there, please sell Kenya in the morning, in the afternoon. Sell Kenya on Monday, Tuesday through Sunday. Sell Kenya January to December. Sell Kenya forever. Okay? And if you run out of, after saying many things about our beautiful country, about its people, about the opportunities, about the peace, about everything else, if you run out of sale points or selling points, just ask whoever you're talking to. Kenya ni fire, si fire.
What is the economic value of peace? And I'm deliberately talking about peace. I'm not talking of the economic value of an airport, the economic value of a road, the economic value of a dam. I'm talking about the economic value of peace. How do we quantify that? How do we package it? Because if there's something that Kenya can pride itself in, is to hold out and hold this very strong asset called peace. What does it take? What does it mean? Because we have now seen lately that you can have the best infrastructure, but if this asset called peace is missing, that asset ceases to give the value that it was intended to give. So ultimately, the anchor of all these assets then is peace.
Your Excellency, over the last 3 days, we have not wasted a minute. Every minute of our being here has been spent well. From the opening ceremony presided over by the head of state, who is diplomat number 1 of the Republic, who in his electrifying speech elevated our consciousness with respect to the moment we are at, and caused us to appreciate the centrality of his vision to transform Kenya on the basis of the vision that Singapore has established. But then, Your Excellency, what followed over the last 3 days have been absolutely engaging conversation. We have asked ourselves difficult questions. Questions around how do we protect our national interest? What is the place of our economic diplomacy? What is the role of missions in that respect? Your Excellency, we've walked the journey of national security in an era, in an era where the world is polarized and fractured, and where multilateralism is fraying. And Your Excellency, we sat around, we had about 5 round tables. Different thematic areas were canvassed, and at plenary, we again spotlighted the question of the role of the diaspora and what it is that we can do to serve and position them better.